Well, one of the biggest culture shocks that I experienced was that AC or air conditioning isn't as strong as it is in the USA. We came here during weeks where it was almost consistently in the 90-degree range, so it was very hot outside. And in Italy, they do a lot of dining happens outside of the restaurant. You go into the restaurant, you pick out what you want, you pay for it, and then you eat at tables that the restaurant owns outside of the restaurant.
So the biggest thing for us that we didn't think would be a problem, but actually was sit-down restaurants. So it's different here than it is in the US because we get in and we get out. When you sit down at a restaurant in Italy, it's more of you enjoy each other's company, you spend as much time as you want at the restaurant, you enjoy the food. They could sit there for 2 hours at a time, but meanwhile in the US, we eat our food and we expect to check right away. So if you have somewhere to go, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to plan accordingly when you sit down, especially if you order a glass of wine. They expect you to finish it before they hand you that check. Splitting the check was definitely hard for us as well. For college students, we first went out and we had a $300 check. And for a college student, that's very hard to front. It's very hard to get multiple people on the same payment plan. If you don't have Venmo or if you don't have Cash App, that's very hard. But we did eventually work it out, but it's not something you can expect everywhere.
I think the biggest advice I would give to a student is do your research before going to another country, period. People live differently than we do in America, and especially going into their country, you want to learn more about their culture and how they do their things, and even just brushing up on basic Italian, communication skills, very important. You need to know how to order something. That's something that we've struggled with a lot. That's something that I really didn't do coming into this trip, is I really didn't know any Italian. I barely even knew how to order something, and that was something that I struggled with. So just doing your basic research as to transport places, how to order something, how to communicate, I think is going to be my biggest advice.
So for being here about 2 weeks, I've learned a couple of things that I've adjusted to. One of them being, funny enough, water. Water is not cheap as it is in America. So if you're going out to dinner or going out to pretty much any meal, it's going to be a cost. So that's something to factor in when I'm coming here. So in America, if you go out to dinner, you can go and get water for free, but they'll give you a glass of water here that's for the table and you have to pay for that. But there is stores like corner stores or little convenience stores that have water that's pretty cheap. But that's the one thing that I feel like I've spent so much money on here, is that I don't have a reusable water, but I am just buying a bunch of bottles of water. The one thing that's good is there are fountains here that seem to be attainable, but they're kind of hit or miss, or if they work or not.
I think one of the great experiences of the trip was riding on the high-speed train to Florence. Going at speeds of upwards of 150 miles an hour, pretty easily is not something that we have in a lot of parts of America. But in Italy, they have a very robust high-speed rail network that crosses the country, and we experienced it, flying through the countryside at 150 miles an hour, and actually shortening a trip that by car takes about an hour and a half down to about 35 minutes. Our trip to Florence took.
Safety-wise, I feel pretty safe. I definitely think there was a huge difference going in between Bologna and Florence. We stayed in Florence for 3 days. We just did a little quick trip to Florence to explore that. And that was huge. It was a huge difference safety-wise. It was a lot busier, a lot more tourists there, a lot more you were scared of getting pickpocketed. But overall, walking late at night, I had no problem with. Even staying in the hostels, I didn't have any problem with any safety concerns between other people. There was people at our hostel that were staying from so many different countries that, I didn't even feel unsafe in the slightest.
So in Florence, you have the trams and you have buses, which you can either get tickets at